You hear about street gangs,
Yeah.
and you often have a certain picture in your head, maybe local, maybe contained.
Right, confined to specific neighborhoods or cities?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then you stumble across a detail that just, well, it totally changes that picture. Take the Asian Boys. We're going to really get into this group today.
Okay.
And here's something that really stopped me. Reports suggesting some members are actually in the U.S. military.
Oh.
Yeah, allegedly using their positions for stuff like drug trafficking. It makes you rethink the whole scope, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. That level of infiltration, if true, is, yeah, it's something else. It shows how deep these networks might run.
Right. So, for this deep dive, we are tackling the Asian Boys. And we know you, our listener, you want the core story, the essentials.
And need to know stuff.
Yeah, their history, how they grew, what drives them, but without getting totally swamped in, endless reports.
Makes sense. Cut through the noise.
So we've gone through a pile of info articles, reports, you name it. Our mission here is to give you that clear, engaging overview, pull out the most important bits, the surprising stuff.
And connect those dots, hopefully.
Yeah.
Show how, their start influenced where they ended up, the expansion, the different activities.
Okay, let's do it. Let's go back. Late 1980s, Long Beach, California.
Right. The starting point.
And the sources point to a really interesting initial reason. Protection.
Protection.
Yeah, it seems Cambodian refugees, relatively new arrivals then, were getting harassed, targeted by other local gangs.
Oh, okay.
Specifically, the East Side Longos are mentioned quite a bit. So the Asian Boys, or at least a precursor, kind of popped up as a defense against that.
That really highlights the vulnerability, doesn't it? A community trying to find its feet and facing external threats.
It does. And you can see how that need for safety, for self-defense, could unfortunately spiral into something else.
Absolutely. Fear, maybe a lack of trust in official channels. It can create a vacuum that groups like this fill initially.
But like a lot of these origin stories, it's maybe not quite that simple. There seems to be some debate.
About how exactly they formed.
Yeah. Was it one single group starting up, or was it more like a bunch of smaller existing cliques kind of banding together?
That's a key question. A unified start versus a coalition? It suggests maybe a less centralized beginning, more fluid.
And this makes sense when you hear about the Tiny Rascal Gang, TRG.
Okay, another major player in that scene.
Right. And apparently some internal beef within TRG back then, late 80s, led to a split. Some members broke off and basically formed the core of the Long Beach Asian Boys.
Ah, so internal conflict right from the get-go. Splinter groups, that's a classic pattern in gang evolution. Power struggles, disagreements.
Exactly. Then things really start to shift in the early 90s. They merge or integrate with another group, Asian Boys Insanity.
ABI.
ABI, where were they based?
Chinatown, LA, and the San Gabriel Valley. And their membership was a bit different, apparently more Chinese and Vietnamese.
So broadening the ethnic base early on. Yeah. And this period seems marked by violence. That El Monte Pool Hall shooting in '93, an ABI member, Leah Meck, was killed.
Okay, yeah, that sounds like a major incident. Probably escalated things, solidified rivalries.
Seems like it. And the structure keeps evolving. ABI and another group, Monterey Park Asian Boys, or MPABZ.
Which came from ABI?
Apparently branched off, yeah. They eventually came together in the mid-90s to form Westside Asian Boys, WSABZ.
Okay, so consolidation. Merging for strength, maybe territory.
Seems likely. It's like watching these different factions join up, become something bigger, pooling resources, maybe.
Makes sense strategically, adapting to the pressures, internal and external.
Then you also have Van Nuys getting involved, a group called Asian Boy Style, ABS.
Another branch.
Formed in the late 80s by Sothi Playa One, men and the Mercado brothers. By the mid-90s, ABS merges with Van Nuys Asian Boys, which itself had ties back to the Long Beach group.
So you see these local chapters popping up and then linking into the larger network.
Right. It allows for that wider reach without maybe needing a super strict top-down command all the time. Local flavor, but under the same banner.
A franchise model, almost. Common for gangs expanding their turf.
And expand they did. Geographically, it's pretty startling. That 2009 FBI assessment,
Yeah.
they found Asian Boys activity in 28 cities across 14 states.
14 states. Wow.
Yeah, heavy on the West Coast, obviously, but also the Midwest, even New England. That's a national footprint.
That really is. It suggests a resilience, not tied to just one location. Makes it harder to disrupt.
And the membership itself, ethnically, it got really diverse over time. Started mostly Cambodian and Filipino American.
Right, reflecting those initial communities.
But later, depending on the region, you see Burmese, Hanamong, Karen, Karenni, Korean, Chinese members. It really varies.
Adapting to local demographics, perhaps? Pulling from different communities?
Maybe. But the sources also stress this major internal split, a persistent conflict.
Within the gang itself?
Yeah, between the S side, mostly Vietnamese members, and the Z side, mainly Cambodian.
Ah, that's fascinating. Ethnic lines inside the gang causing friction.
Seems like a significant source of tension. Power struggles, mistrust, maybe different priorities based on background.
That kind of internal division can really weaken a group, or at least make it less predictable. Definitely key to understanding them.
Okay, let's shift to, well, what they do. The criminal activities.
Right. The business side, unfortunately.
The list is pretty broad, sadly typical for organized crime. Drug trafficking, robbery, assault, burglary, theft, and homicide.
A wide portfolio. Allows different crews to specialize, maybe? Provides multiple income streams, makes the overall structure more robust against crackdowns on one activity.
And the reports detail some really grim examples. Pierre Mercado, one of the founders,
Yeah.
responsible for 4 murders, early 90s, he actually fled to the Philippines
Got away?
for over a decade. But he was eventually extradited in 2012 and got sentenced to 218 years in 2013.
Wow. Justice delayed, but incredibly significant sentence. Shows the long arm of the law, even internationally.
Then there's Sothi Men, Playa One, the Van Nuys leader,
Right, mentioned earlier.
arrested in Cambodia in 97, also extradited. He was wanted for 5 murders from back in 95.
Cambodia. So Southeast Asia was seen as a potential safe haven for a while.
Seems like it, maybe back then. But international cooperation clearly improved, making that harder. Extradition treaties matter.
Definitely closes those loopholes over time.
And it wasn't just isolated incidents. There were charges in 1998 against multiple members for 3 murders, 5 attempted murders. It points to sustained high-level violence through the 90s.
Just underscores the danger they pose during that peak period.
One case that really stands out for sheer brutality is Soful Phone in Kentucky, 1996.
Kentucky. So far from the West Coast base.
Yeah. She apparently herded a family into their bathroom and shot them. Only a young daughter survived by hiding.
Oh my God. It's horrific.
Just chillingly cold. She got life without parole. A stark outcome for such violence.
That kind of extreme violence leaves scars on communities for generations.
Yeah. And the violence didn't stop in the 90s. Moving into the 2000s, you see it continuing across the map. Lowell, Massachusetts, 2006. A birthday party fight ends in a death.
Just senseless.
Utica, New York, same year. A fatal beating. Members got significant prison time for that.
So East Coast presence confirmed through violence, unfortunately.
Then Jenner, California, 2008. A murder at a gas station, very public. 4 guys got life without parole for that one.
It reinforces that idea of a widespread, persistent problem, not just a coastal thing. Local chapters, same violent culture.
Marvin Mercado, another early figure.
Related to Pierre.
Brother. He got life in 2011 for murders going back to the mid-90s. 8 people.
8. Again, these cases take years, decades sometimes, to resolve fully.
And it's ongoing. More recently, Northern Virginia, drug trafficking, marijuana, coke, ecstasy, pills, and recent murder arrests tied to high-ranking members there.
Still active, still involved in serious crime.
Fall River, Massachusetts, 2018. Another high-ranking member arrested after a shooting.
Massachusetts again.
And Monterey Park, California, 2019. Gang activity, including a shootout with the Sereno gang.
So, still engaging in rivalries, still a threat. It shows they haven't just faded away.
Let's talk about those connections. Allies and rivals, who do they work with?
Sources mention alliances with the Crips, especially on the West Coast, and a group called Menace of Destruction.
Crip connection makes sense, right? Shared color blue. Some reports even mention them calling themselves ABZ Crips.
Yeah, pragmatic alliances are common. Shared enemies, maybe overlapping territory, drug trade cooperation. The Crips are established, powerful, so linking up makes strategic sense.
And the enemies list.
It's long. The Bloods, obviously, rivals to the Crips.
The East Side Longos, going way back to the start.
Right. Smiley Dragon, Tiny Rascal Gang, their own parent group.
Yeah, that internal split became external rivalry.
Crazy Brother Clan, Vietnamese Boys, and Watching.
Watching seems like a particularly bitter one.
Definitely. That El Monte pool hall shooting in '93 where Leah Mack died, that was reportedly part of the Watching conflict.
A major flashpoint.
Yeah.
But then there was also this summer madness stuff.
Yeah, sounds like a series of shootouts, particularly one at a San Marino high school graduation party, also in '93, June.
A graduation party. Jeez.
2 young people killed, apparently uninvolved bystanders, lots of arrests, weapons seized. It sounds like a very public, very violent eruption of that rivalry. Really shows how these conflicts spill over and endanger everyone. Tragic.
Okay, let's shift a bit. Culture, identity. How do they signal who they are? Colors.
Primarily blue and navy on the West Coast, aligning with the Crips, as you said.
But interestingly, different elsewhere.
Yeah, reports mention forest green, black, and white being used too, especially in the Midwest and East Coast.
So not monolithic, regional variations again. Adapting to the local scene maybe. Different alliances.
Could be. Or just wanting a distinct identity in areas where Crip influence isn't as strong shows that local adaptation.
What about dress style?
West Coast, it reflected the 80s and 90s trends initially. Baggy clothes, sports teams. Younger members probably follow current street fashion more.
And Midwest East Coast.
Described more as general hip-hop casual style. So again, some regional difference, not a strict uniform.
And tattoos. Always significant in gang culture.
For sure. A dragon head with crystal globes is apparently a mark of high rank.
Okay.
And they also use sak yant tattoos.
The traditional Thai Cambodian tattoos.
Exactly. Believed to offer power, protection, that kind of thing. It shows a connection, or at least an appropriation, of cultural traditions.
How important are symbols like that for holding the group together?
Hugely important. Tattoos, colors, hand signs, they're markers of identity, loyalty, belonging. They reinforce the shared history, the U.S. versus them mentality. Using cultural symbols like sak yant can add another layer, maybe a sense of deeper meaning or legitimacy for members.
No numbers. How many are we talking about?
That 2009 FBI estimate, the one we mentioned, put it between 5,000 and 10,000 members.
That's a pretty wide range, but even the low end is substantial.
It is a significant network spread across the country. And as we've seen, the culture, the structure, even who they let in can vary quite a bit from place to place.
Some factions might be more ethnically exclusive than others, maybe.
Exactly. It's not one single entity acting in perfect unison everywhere. It's more complex.
And that military connection, I mean, it bears repeating. Confirmed members in the U.S. Armed Forces.
Yeah, that detail is really jarring. It raises serious questions about vetting, about potential insider threats, the reach of these groups. It's a whole other layer.
Definitely a national security concern, not just street crime.
Absolutely.
And the specific locations mentioned, beyond California, give a sense of that spread. Indianapolis, Fort Wayne in Indiana,
Minnesota, Omaha.
New York, Texas, Massachusetts, Utica up in New York.
It really paints a picture of a gang that managed to embed itself in diverse communities, far from its origin point. Shows adaptability, networking, or maybe just individuals moving and setting up new chapters.
So, wrapping up this deep dive on the Asian Boyz, several things really stand out, I think. Yeah, quite a journey.
They started, apparently, as protection for Cambodian refugees. A defensive origin.
Right, against groups like the East Side Longos.
But evolved, sadly, into this major criminal organization with a truly national reach.
A common, tragic trajectory sometimes.
Their membership is incredibly diverse ethnically, pulling from many Southeast Asian and East Asian communities.
Which is somewhat unusual compared to some other gangs that might be more monolithic.
Yet they seem plagued by this internal ethnic conflict, that S-side versus Z-side thing, Vietnamese versus Cambodian factions.
A major fault line running through the organization.
They're involved in a whole spectrum of serious crimes, drugs to homicide across the U.S.
And have that history of really violent rivalries, especially with Huaching. The Summer Madness incident is a stark reminder of that.
Yeah, and it's just crucial to see the complexity, right? It touches on immigrant experiences, how gangs form, the persistence of organized crime, and those surprising elements, like the military infiltration, the internal ethnic tensions. They really show how multifaceted these groups are. It's not a simple picture.
Which brings us back to that origin.
Yeah.
If they started as defense for a vulnerable group, what does their path tell us? How easily can those initial, maybe understandable motivations get twisted in difficult environments?
It's a profound question. What factors tip the balance from protection to predation?
Yeah. And with them still active across so many states, even within institutions like the military, what are the challenges now for communities, for law enforcement trying to grasp and deal with this kind of complex, evolving gang activity in America today?
It definitely leaves you thinking about the ongoing struggle and how these groups adapt and endure, a question without easy answers.